Hello, I'm Charlotte Kahl. I was the executive director for the Old Spanish Trail Auto Highway Project as we tried to celebrate the centennial. And part of that was the Deco District. And so, it being near the center of the whole thing, I want to tell you a little bit about the history of how that Deco District was formed. These wonderful neighborhood folks, Jane Gaitan, Hector Cardenas, came up with the idea in 1988 that Fredericksburg Road needed to be a little better than it was then. And Eloy Rosales worked for the city, and he bought into their desires. And so the teenager at the time, Ed Garza, was also very involved in it. So from 1988 to November of 1996, they did the Fredericksburg Road Drainage Project. And that was the way that the Deco District kind of came up as a celebration at the finish of that. They dug all the way down. They took off all the everything out of it, all the pavement. They dug all the way down to the bottom and replaced all the water lines and sewer lines and put in new high-tech electric lines. And Dan Medley, pro bono, designed some of these beautiful structures that they put up for the stone structures at the corners and the buildings for the bus stops and that sort of thing. And as that drainage project got done, the Deco District came into being. In 1915, there was a plan to build the first transcontinental highway all the way across the United States, with it being paid for by businessmen and not necessarily cities and county transportation departments. At that time were not formed. And so these businesses started, and they built a thing that they called the Old Spanish Trail. And my dad had taken us on all kinds of trips when we were kids across Interstate 70, which used to be US 40, was much like I-10 and US 90 down here. So I looked at it and I thought, wow, I know what US 40 looked like, but I don't know what I-10 looks like. And so we started driving back and forth and looking into things about how you would celebrate. And we identified various monuments and important things from each of those large cities in the 8 states. And we started telling people, you're on the Old Spanish Trail, and getting the story out about what that highway that had become an auto highway soon after the stagecoach went all the way across. So when that all began, those cities got excited about it. Each town, large city, had a planning session of what they would do to form their own part of the Old Spanish Trail Auto Highway. And so we reenacted, and we called it the centennial of the reenactments of the first planning session in 1915 in Mobile, and then other planning sessions all along the way. All the large cities, we went to New Orleans and had their 100th anniversary of their planning session. And the last one was the planning session in 1923, when they finished called the highway finished. And then in 1923 and 1924, discussed how shall we get businesses, how shall we attract traffic. But of course, by that time, it was already attracting lots of traffic. Okay, from the very beginning, the Old Spanish Trail group that started in Mobile very soon moved over to San Antonio with the headquarters section, because it was the center of the whole thing. And at the same time, the Deco District was formed, and we knew how neighborhoods had worked together to form that Deco District. So we used that Deco District as the model for how to improve your neighborhood by improving your streets, which then, of course, all the businesses then get improved, and then the neighborhoods behind them get improved. So, how important it was to start with the basics of your transportation corridor. One of the ways that we helped celebrate when you thought about the Deco District, at first it was just this curving, fairly straight, but curving around the hills road of the stagecoaches. And so there were very few businesses and things along the alignment. Well, once the highway went in, the old Spanish Trail went in, all these businesses popped up along the way. And so we are trying to then, the oldest ones were still here. Singer Sewing Machine, Handy Andy was gone, and HEB is now here. But so many of those old things that we remembered as kids, it was nice to be able to share them with the new generations coming along. It would look just like it looks today. I say that as a historian who wants these history things saved. And although the highway was built many years before the Deco District was the way to design it and make it beautiful. And that has to be remembered. And I would hope that the whole old Spanish Trail could someday look like the Deco District.